Hey everyone, my name is Cole. The time has finally arrived. The movie that is supposed to be as good as The Dark Knight, receiving standing ovations after each screening and being renowned as one of the greatest superhero films ever made. Did it live up to the hype? Does it compare to the comic that it was based off? In my opinion, no. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and let me know if you want more videos like this. Peace. In all seriousness, guys, I was walking into this theater very excited, but also very nervous about what I was about to witness. My nerdy ass walked in with my The Flash t-shirt that was inspired by Metallica, wearing a Bass Pro Shop hat, even though I went fishing only one time. I actually did catch a fish my first ever time fishing. Not to brag or anything, but kind of a big deal. And I also was a dumbass and bought an $18 popcorn bucket that was inspired by The Flash. So yeah, I am going to need to take out a second mortgage or something. But to be honest with you guys, I don't love this film. I'm actually pretty upset and disappointed, and over this video you will understand why I feel like a child who just got his Xbox taken away for a week. A quick synopsis of what this video will entail. I'll be talking about Flashpoint, the greatest comic of all time, guys. I'll be comparing it to this film, which this film is based off of, and I will argue tooth and nail because you can literally Google it, guys. It's right there. I will talk about the character of Barry Allen. I'll talk about this amazing story that this film was loosely based off of, some things I would change, and overall, guys, how this film made me feel when I walked out of the theater. This is a spoiler warning for those who have not seen the film. I'll be talking about a lot of things, a lot of the cameos, everything. And I also wanted to mention I'm not going to talk about the news and entire situation of Ezra Miller. We all know what happened, and I myself have learned to separate the artist from the art, though I find it absolutely ridiculous that James Gunn wants to keep Ezra Miller and get rid of Henry Cavill. But hey, that's probably just to try and secure more money for this film that is likely to fail in the box office. As always, my friends, enjoy. I was anticipating The Flash more than any film this year, other than, as of now, The Creator and Dune Part 2. I was walking into the theater, super excited, but also very anxious and nervous, as I know that they weren't going to be faithful to the comic that they were basing the film off of. And I'm just going to say this now because so many people have already argued with me, and I don't understand why. But Flashpoint provides a template for the Flash's plot, though the film makes dozens of crucial changes to the source material that make it almost unrecognizable. I understand they wanted to tell their own story, and superhero films do this all the time, but for me, it's a matter of not understanding why they chose to not do a single thing from the comics, many of which being integral. So to all those DC fans who are constantly defending this movie and saying, oh, it's not Flashpoint, it literally is. It's following the exact plot and template, so you're wrong, that's a fact. I hate doing the whole Spider-Man pointing fingers thing, but it is Flashpoint. We're never going to get another movie like this again. Is Barry going back in time to save his mother? That's what happens, that's the plot, that's Flashpoint. Before we dive too deep into everything I want to talk about, I first want to discuss the title of this video. This title is heavily inspired by the Flashpoint comic, which states perception is reality. It's a phrase often used to emphasize the subjectivity of human experiences and the influence of individual perspectives on how events, situations, or people are perceived. It suggests that people's beliefs, attitudes, and interpretations shape their understanding of reality, regardless of whether their perception aligns with objective truth. Of course, The Flash is barely faithful to the Flashpoint, and that's okay. Do I believe that Flashpoint could have been a far more compelling narrative and vision that could deem it one of the greatest superhero movies ever made? 100%. Sadly, nothing is perfect, and I kind of shot myself in the foot because I read the Flashpoint comic and I watched the animated film before seeing The Flash, and that honestly made this entire experience a million times worse for me. It's 2023, guys. I've been waiting over 10 years to see this character faithfully and respectfully adapted to live-action television or cinema, and once again, guys, I'm just disappointed. There's just so many things I want to confess, I want to share that truly upset my heart as I watch my childhood be ignored and forgotten yet again. I watched some of the most compelling and emotional story beats I have ever read be completely disregarded for creative choices that I deem as destructive. At the end of The Flash, my biggest question was, why? Why distance yourself from the source material on such a dramatic level to not focus on the killer of Barry's mother? Why not have a World War III scenario between the Atlanteans and Amazons? Why skip on so many story beats that are greater in scale, weight, and impactful storytelling? I just don't get it. Similar to the writers, I don't know where to begin, so I will start somewhere in the multiverse. I want to give some backstory on the comic that this film was loosely based off of. The Flashpoint Paradox is a popular comic released in 2011 as a 5-issue miniseries under the title Flashpoint, written by Jeff Johns, who is a genius by the way, and illustrated by Andy Kubert and Sandra Hope. The storyline explores an alternate reality where the superhero known as the Flash, Barry Allen, wakes up in a drastically changed world. In this reality, his powers are gone, his mother is alive, and the world is on the brink of a devastating war between the Atlanteans and the Amazons. And let me just say, what I just told you is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much depth to this story, and even crazier and absolutely stunning and beautiful, charming, I don't even know how else to explain it, moments that are truly captivating and world-changing. Flashpoint is truly one of the greatest comics ever made. Enough about Flashpoint. Who is Barry Allen, the Flash? Most people who are familiar with the Flash, at least nowadays, mainly know the character from the CW show, but there is so much more to that, and there's so many iterations of him in the comics, and in animation and cinema. The Flash is one of the most underrated characters in comics. This optimistic and lighthearted hero is so relatable and inspirational. Despite having super speed, Barry is a down-to-earth character who works as a forensic scientist and hopes to solve the mystery of his mother's murder. The Flash's stories often delve into emotional themes such as loss, sacrifice, and the importance of family. There's so much potential in this character, but have we ever seen accurate and compelling adaptations of this iconic symbol? Short answer, that is my opinion, and don't you dare even consider CW as a viable answer. No. That CW show is awful and inconsistent with Barry's powers, and Barry couldn't do anything on his own. Hell, he literally lost to bees in an episode. It's so stupid. I'm not a Snyder hater, I actually love the man and he is a massive inspiration to me, but I hate how he constructed his Barry Allen. His Barry Allen is too immature, acts more in tone with Spider-Man, mainly as a comedic relief. In the comics, Barry was a little more stoic. He will quip and try to ease tension in the room, but he was a mature character who was incredibly smart. I believe we have never seen this character in the godforsaken CW show or Snyder's iteration of the character. But hey, we're not exclusively here to talk about these other adaptations of this beloved character, but today we are talking about Andy Muschietti's take on Barry Allen, the Flash. In all honesty, I do think Andy Muschietti's take on Barry Allen is slightly improved from Zack Snyder's iteration, but I still think is incredibly flawed and far from the character that I know and love. He still jokes around way too much, and he is honestly an idiot a majority of the time. I do think it was slightly beneficial to have this mirror version of Barry in front of our timeline's Barry, because it allowed him to see how annoying he is, how immature he is, and hopefully this will be good for his character if we see him again in the future to mature and grow and have good character progression and development. The character of Barry Allen is a character who is constantly brought down, torn apart, who wishes for life to be different. Imagine the universe giving you the power to save the ones you love, to go back and change everything. Barry could switch the grade of an exam he flunked, the time he absolutely failed to have a basic conversation with his crush, or have an opportunity to save his family, to save his mother from death so that he may no longer be alone, afraid, and desperately missing that nurturing love that only a mother could provide. The mental struggle to use his power for good and not for selfish gain, to fully contemplate the consequences of his actions and what could come of his human choices, to desperately wish to find a way to bring that broken piece of you that has been taken away at such a young age, but choosing not to fix it because of what it may do to others. It's so tragic and heartbreaking. The Flash has worked his entire life to prove that his father was framed for the murder of his mother, and he wants to find the real killer. He now has the power to reverse all that and find out for himself, and he can possibly save the ones he loves the most. Barry Allen in the comics finds out that his life has been targeted by a single enemy that he has never even met yet. And that one enemy hates him so much, despite Barry never even knowing him. That man, that enemy, killed Barry's mother. The one person that Barry wished he has never lost, and this character is the Reverse Flash. The Flash left me a bit perplexed because the Reverse Flash was nowhere in the film. It's strange because the movie brought to light for quite a long time that Barry's mother was murdered. I was expecting the Flash to take us on a journey and mission to save his mother or find out who killed her. Did we get that? Nope. Instead, the Flash puts a can of tomato sauce into his mom's grocery cart so his father never left the house, which somehow led to her not being murdered. This is just a massive plot hole because she was killed within a few seconds in the original timeline, with the murderer nowhere to be found. It's just ridiculous, and I don't know why they chose to go this route. The Reverse Flash would legit murder Barry's mother no matter what happens. He needs to. Who murdered Barry's mom and left the scene with no trace in 10 to 15 seconds? Oh wait, I'll stop. I'm thinking too much about it, I guess.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
There is so much importance and jaw-dropping intensity between their relationship of the Flash and the Reverse Flash. Let me explain a little bit more. Eobard Thawne, also known as Professor Zoom or the Reverse Flash, is a time-traveling enemy from the future. He is a dangerous speedster from the 25th century who has become obsessed with the Flash and seeks to destroy his life and legacy. Thawne idolizes the Flash but eventually becomes consumed by jealousy, by hatred, leading him to use his powers for nefarious purposes. Thawne gains his powers by recreating and following the path that Barry took to get his powers, his super speed. He travels back in time to confront Barry and assumes the identity of the Reverse Flash to torment him. The Reverse Flash costume is a yellow variation of the Flash's outfit with a distinctive lightning bolt on the chest but reversed in a color scheme. He is Barry's opposite. The Reverse Flash is one of my favorite villains of all time, and his rivalry between the Flash is one of the most iconic rivalries in DC Comics. They have clashed in various storylines and across different media adaptations, including comics, animated series, and the CW live-action adaptation. I have waited my entire life to see these two battle and duke it out in a live-action adaptation in a good and respectful manner. Other than the CW shows, I don't think that those have really ever been done well. I did actually kind of like season 1, but that can honestly be nostalgic because I watched that when I was a young teenager. But it sucks that, they decided to not include Barry Allen's #1 villain in The Flash. I don't know what Andy Muschietti and the gang at WB were thinking, but they decided not to include one of the greatest villains in the DC universe. This character was so influential in the entire comic world. He even told Barry in the comics that you trade the life of your mother for the rest of the world. That is such a powerful and heavy statement. He hates Barry with a passion. Do you not think that this being from the future who is obsessed with the Flash and needs the Flash to even be alive and have his super speed, having this obsession over a character would not be insane? Imagine the performances you could get out of this character. There are so many amazing actors who could play this role. My pick would be the actor who played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones. I think he would be an amazing Reverse Flash, and he is an incredibly underrated actor. Which I have had that fan casting for years, and I just looked at the cast list, and guess who was there? I remember seeing this guy eat a slice of pizza in the movie, and I thought he looked familiar. There's no way that they made him Reverse Flash. It was probably just a cameo because he worked with Andy Muschietti on Mama, but oh my god, I lost my mind for a second. I don't know, I'm ranting because this villain really should have been in the movie, and it's honestly ridiculous, but you know what? It's also ridiculous that they started off The Flash with Flashpoint, his greatest comic, and something that you really should have built up, but hey, I'm definitely overthinking it, which is kind of ironic because this film goes out of its way to explain every little detail in the film. Speaking of this film is so obnoxious to explain the multiverse concept. Audiences are smarter than the writers believe, and it's shocking they didn't change this after Marvel has been doing this for years, and even Spider-Verse has been doing it. We have been getting the same multiverse explanation for years, and it's getting ridiculous at this point. But at least The Flash did it with spaghetti. God, it was so stupid. The crazy thing is, this concept is primarily explained to us by, you ready for this guys? Michael Keaton's Batman, a character who we have never seen deal with beings from another planet or universe. It just doesn't check out. Another plot hole, I guess. It was cool seeing Keaton again, despite the dialogue being pretty weak for his character, but he gave a solid performance. I've never been a diehard fan of Keaton's take on the Bat, but it was refreshing to hear that Elfman's score again, and seeing his version of the character be adapted with today's technology. There are so many things you couldn't do back in the 80s and early 90s, so it was absolutely amazing to see well choreographed fight scenes, and his Batwing. It is disappointing that his return to the big screen as everyone's favorite billionaire and man dressed as a bat was him hiding in a cabinet, looking like a homeless man, popping out and fighting the two Flashes while also being perceived as an alcoholic? Yeah, I said it. This man was drinking in the middle of the fight with his long hair and beard. It's not something I'm upset about, but I think it would have been better to see the character in a Dark Knight Returns scenario where he is still an older Batman and he still strives to make the world a better place. It was just a very off-putting visual for the first time we see Michael Keaton return as Batman, so I was really shocked to see them go that route. I just didn't buy the homeless man alcoholic look, because since Bruce Wayne is a very proactive personality, I doubt he would let himself go. Perception is reality, totally subjective, and if you liked it, that does not bother me. It wasn't a huge deal, but similar to No Way Home, it sucks that we saw Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in a living room. You would think that we'd want to see, to many people, the greatest Batman of all time in a more iconic location and presentation than him looking like a homeless man drinking alcohol, barefoot, jumping on tables, and all that jazz. So now, marked in history, everyone will look back upon The Flash, see Michael Keaton's return, and for the first time we see this character, who looks like a homeless man who is also an alcoholic, instead of us having a cool moment where he shows up as Batman or an iconic moment that we will remember forever. Instead, his return as the Bat was underwhelming. To continue on from the other things that this film did not include, I know many of you have not read Flashpoint or watched the animated film, but because of Barry's recklessness reversing time, it affects everything. Going back in time is dangerous. It's like toppling over a row of dominoes, or a rock being thrown through a windshield. It leaves cracks throughout history like the butterfly effect. Barry has, and still is, learning how his actions have those dire consequences. Him going back in time to save his mother affected everyone. In this alternate timeline, Superman never lands in Kansas. Instead, he lands in Metropolis, where the government captured him and experimented on him for decades. Who now lives as a scared, shriveled, and lost soul who has never even seen the light of the sun. Which I do deep down believe that is almost symbolism for how Barry has felt his entire life without his mother. So many of the metahumans and superheroes that we know in our original timeline never existed. Barry's effect had such a drastic reach. But one of the most intriguing aspects, something that I would love to see in a what-if scenario, was the fact that in the Flashpoint Paradox, Bruce was the one who got shot in that alleyway that night, causing Thomas Wayne to become Batman and his mother Martha Wayne to become the Joker. Tell me that wouldn't be an amazing plot point that audiences would absolutely adore. I don't understand why this was not in the film. An aspect I desperately craved, desired, and longed for was seeing Thomas Wayne in The Flash. I myself would have greatly preferred seeing Thomas Wayne instead of Michael Keaton's Batman because of the payoff at the end, which I will get to later in this video. I was so looking forward to seeing Jeffrey Dean Morgan portray Thomas Wayne in Flashpoint. He is such a perfect casting, and of course his performance as Negan in The Walking Dead sets a perfect example of how accurately he could have portrayed this character in a respectful manner and showed off his acting range. I want to see this incredibly talented actor as this raging and violent version of the greatest character of all time, as he takes his anger out on criminals, not for the citizens of Gotham, but for his own bitterness he cannot cope with since his son, Bruce, died in that dark alleyway that fateful night in the Flashpoint Paradox. Thomas's version of the Bat believed he was too corrupted by his own unbearable pain. He believed he was a man who had too much blood on his hands to be considered good. He believed he was a man who had nothing to live for, until he met the Flash. I needed to see Thomas Wayne become willing to help Barry change the world, only because that means there is a chance for his son to live. If it meant that Thomas took the bullet, that he was 6 feet deep instead of his son, he would sacrifice everything and more to make that become a reality. It's so poetic and heartbreaking. One of my favorite moments of the comic is when Thomas is speaking to Barry and says nothing of this world will matter once Barry fixes everything, followed by Barry asking Thomas, "Did it ever matter to you?" The sense of accepting the things you cannot change, having the courage to change the things you can, and having the wisdom to know the difference is richly complex. Superhero movies have truly lost their way. It's all about trying to recognize a big name actor or a superhero we saw 2 decades ago. It is no longer about groundbreaking and emotional, impactful storytelling. It is about all these cameos and cool CGI monstrosities. There is no more heart and it is so disingenuous. I see them not using Thomas Wayne or truly anything from the Flashpoint comic, despite using the comic as a template, as a huge missed opportunity, and I will always remember what could have been. Here's the best way how I can summarize how the Flash utilized its source material. If it chose and selected to use these impactful plot points from what it was trying to copy, they would translate it in an inferior way that removed the emotion, the impact, and the gravity of the situations. I will give an example. This didn't bother me too much in The Flash, but I did find it to be a downgrade from what we originally had. And it yet again made me ask, why? It was the way they handled Barry going back in time to allow his mother to be killed. Of course, in the comic, we had that build up to that moment by Barry knowing it was the Reverse Flash who killed his mother, and stopping him, which led to her being alive. To stop this alternate world from ever happening, making this World War III scenario disappear and saving millions, Barry had to stop his past self from saving his mother. The imagery hit way harder in the comic and in the animated film, whereas The Flash just used a can of tomato soup. Additionally, Barry had that personal interaction with her to say goodbye, but it was leagues above what we got in The Flash. It's just a small thing that I wish was better, but a lot of that was because the intrigue behind the Reverse Flash and their drama was so rich and would have been excellent to see on screen. I don't know, I guess I've come to the conclusion that WB and Andy Muschietti and his writers believe that Barry is not an intelligent character. Barry would not go back in time to get a can of tomato sauce to save his mother. He would want to stop the man who did it in the first place. Not just for vengeance, but to have a chance to save another boy from facing the same trauma he was forced to endure. People should honestly treat most comic book films like book adaptations, especially this one. They shouldn't deviate from the source material on such a drastic level and make every decision based on money and greed. I'm not even sure if Andy Muschietti and his writer read the Flashpoint comic because every creative choice they made was worse and inferior to Flashpoint. There is one other moment that deeply impacted me, but I want to talk about some other small things that happened in the film. There were a ton of cameos, and they were cameos that didn't have an effect on the story or anything else, but I'm a fan, service me, and I liked them. They were nice, but they did not save the film. Supergirl was in the movie and replaced Superman, who is in the original comic, and she gets absolutely destroyed by Zod dozens of times, which is kind of funny because I thought they were actually going to make her strong. Instead, she got bullied, guys. It was rough. Speaking of Zod, they did absolutely nothing with Michael Shannon, and even in a recent interview, he complained, saying that he did absolutely nothing, whereas for Man of Steel, he trained for well over a year. I was disappointed to see how little they used his character despite using him a lot in the promotion, and he was brilliant in, once again, Man of Steel. Also, it's a shame that we barely saw growth yet again between Barry and Iris West. I'm so tired of their relationship never being done well in live action, especially the CW show. Oh my gosh, Iris is the worst character ever. And even without comparing it to the comic, I find it to be a very bland script and a complete mess. The script would maybe have worked a decade ago for me, but we are in an oversaturated cinematic landscape that has exhausted the multiverse concept. This film was stripped of unique ideas, had obnoxious comedy, cliche dialogue, and zero emotional heartbeat. The Flash also has major tone issues that made it difficult to connect to anything. I do not know how this film was getting such high praise from famous actors, early screening audiences, and most importantly, James Gunn. It's a total mystery to me. Also, we have to talk about this. This is probably the worst modern superhero movie visually ever made. Andy Muschietti made a recent comment stating, "The idea, of course, is we are in the perspective of the Flash. Everything is distorted in terms of light and textures."
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Give us a better excuse, man. Barry can process information and even think at the speed of light, so that definitely means he can process everything around him faster, and the speed wouldn't affect him. How else would he avoid crashing into everything? Just admit that you rushed the VFX and they are genuinely bad. This film looks awful. There are some good moments of cinematography, but that's when they are not forcing their VFX on everything. I can't believe this dude just got signed and confirmed to direct a Batman Brave and the Bold. My go-to pick was Matthew Vaughn, the guy behind Kingsman and Kick-Ass. That would have been perfect, at least to my opinion, because he makes very passionate and sincere films, and he can handle action sequences very well. But hey, maybe one day Matthew Vaughn will get a shot at a DC film. As of now, I'm not a fan of Andy Muschietti. I don't think Mama was that great, and I also think the It movies are a bit overrated, and that second one is not good. So I'm curious to see how he will direct a Batman film, especially since I don't find this film to be that impressive. Anyways, I've been building up to this moment the entire video, and I just need to get it off my chest. I need to say this because it was the one thing I wanted from this film, despite knowing it wasn't going to be faithful to Flashpoint. Ben Affleck's last moment on screen was a horribly rendered CGI face and really corny jokes that just didn't fit his tone of Batman. I thought the end of the film was going to show him because we heard his voice over the call he had between Barry. Instead of him getting out of the car to greet Barry, we saw George Clooney.
7 million.
Clooney being there doesn't bother me too much because there's no way in hell Gunn is about to make that dude Batman. But what does bother me? We didn't see one of the most iconic moments in comics, which was the ending of Flashpoint.
You're one hell of a messenger. Thank you.
Love him or hate him, his Bruce was so traumatized by his origin. I was hoping it was the least they could do. It hurt seeing that because my eyes were tearing up knowing it was the last time we would see such a talented actor portray a character he barely got to play, and the fact we were going to see one of the most beautiful and beloved moments in comic book history. Instead, I felt it was disrespectful. And man, I'm sitting here and I don't even know how to explain it. I myself am getting emotional just talking about it. It was a missed opportunity to turn the page on a massive chapter in the DC cinematic universe, and I felt it would have been a deeply impactful moment for comic fans and casual audiences alike. The story and origins of Batman are universally known across the entire world. They could have done something so simple as Barry pulling Bruce to the side, handing him a note, walking away, and we see the camera zoom out and we watch Bruce fall to his knees and maybe zoom up to his face, have a very intimate shot of him shedding a tear and looking over at Barry as he's walking away and whispers to himself, "You're one hell of a messenger, Barry." Maybe I'm as crazy as the Joker for believing that this would be a beautiful moment to see Bruce have that closure, knowing that his father loved him and is proud of him. Even though he lost out on having a beautiful life with his family, he has this one note to hold with him forever. Even though we won't see Ben Affleck's iteration of this character again, we will get to experience this crucial moment in his character. I leaned forward quite emotional at the end of the film because it was the one thing I needed to see. I don't care if it was the worst film ever. If it had that moment, I would have been okay.
Such is life.
If you liked The Flash, guys, I'm happy for you. I mean it. I really tried and desperately wanted to love it. For it to be one of my favorite movies of all time because this is my favorite character of all time. I wanted a satisfying experience I have been dreaming of for over a decade, but it wasn't that for me. For me, it was the end of an era. A film that gave 2 middle fingers to the past without honoring it. A past I have fond memories and experiences of. It was DC's attempt at No Way Home, and it was very disingenuous in my eyes. I feel like the thing that hurt me the most internally was the fact that we're probably not going to see another Flash movie for another 10 to 15 years because this film, honestly, I doubt will do good in the box office, and DC has always been pretty disrespectful towards the Flash. We don't have a lot of media covering him, which is shocking because I believe he is one of the most compelling characters in history. Please let me know your feelings on this movie. Was it compelling? Do you think it lived up to the ungodly amount of hype? And do you see it as one of the greatest comic book films ever made? Lastly, guys, like and subscribe. This was a very emotional and personal video for me, as you could tell. And any amount of support is greatly appreciated. As always, guys, peace.